Chapter 63. On August 4th, Mason reports a great storm of thunder and lightning, the lightning in continued streams or streaks from the cloud to the ground all around us, about 5 minutes before the hurricane of wind and rain. The cloud from the western part of the mountain put on the most dreadful appearance I ever saw. It seemed to threaten an immediate dissolution to all beneath it. That sort of weather, Dixon, chewing upon more than smoking a Conestoga cigar, supposes. Look at that cloud. Awful. Don't you pray in situations like this? Of course, but I didn't imagine deists did so much. This is no pervading influence. This is as personal as it gets. All it'd take would be one bolt of lightning. A huge apocalyptic peal strikes directly outside, arriving together with a volume of light unknown even at midday. Again are the party returning eastward, into memory and confabulation. The physical world, from gusts to eclipses, must insist upon itself a bit more. So claimed are the surveyors in their contra-solar return by might it be's and if it were's, not to mention what was that's. Next day, while yet west of Gunpowder, crossing Bite-a-Bit Creek, they pass near a house which is just reaching the cusp of a monthly, indeed lunar, wimwam they have on previous occasions managed to avoid. It seems that each time the full moon ascends to bathe in her flavid stain the steeps and crevices of that country, Zepho Beck creeps from his bed, waking his wife, Rhodey, who then waits for as many heartbeats as she may bear before stealing out after Zepho as he proceeds to the creek side, and, selecting a young birch of a certain diameter, crouches before it, bares his teeth, finger combing his hair back from his face with creek water, approaching the tree closely enough to sniff the bark and smell the fluids of life coursing beneath, before falling upon it, and in a short though hideous turn of gnawing, his eyes throwing crazed yellow flashes all about, bringing it down. With his wife watching secretly and in some agitation, Zepho sheds his clothing to reveal a dense fur covering his body, enters the water dragging with him the slain tree, and moves upstream, flapping his feet now grown webbed to propel and steer him, sleekly round several bends, till coming upon a great dam being built by legitimate beavers, who of course all go swimming for their lives as soon as they see Zepho. For they know him, as this has been happening every full moon, perhaps indifferent to their social rejection. He sets to work separating his tree into poles, sticks, and withes, and placing them wherever in the structure of the dam or lodge he feels they need to go. The next morning he is found downhill from his house, beside the fishing pond, lying among remnants of gnawed shrubs with fragments of half-eaten water lilies protruding from his mouth. Castoranthropy, Professor Worm shaking his head. And haven't I seen it do things to a man? Tragic. Yes, and you might ask the Indians that you meet how all the other beavers like it, says Rhodey. Other, madam? Well, you've but to look at him when he's the way he is. The hair, the teeth, the tail, for goodness sake. They seem to regard him as another breed of Creek life, welcoming his help with the construction, yet in the month's lull before his next fit, obliged to waste their time putting much of it right again. I love him, but Zepho's no carpenter. Look at this place, Lord, in his mercy, and it gets worse. He believes that Indians are out setting traps for him, aiming to capture him and trade his pelt for weapons. Sometimes he does say scalp, but mostly 'tis pelt. An advanced case, notes the professor. They're in the barn, where Zepho has been brought, much to the perplexity of the animals there, who must conflate the being who feeds them with this wild creature. The Indians I have consulted know everything that's going on, and if it's any comfort, at least Zepho's not alone. There's been an Ulster Scot with a taste for swamp maples, paddling up all summer in Juniata, a son of Dublin down by Cheat. In fact, enough castoromorphism among white folks out here since we first started settling to populate a good lake of our own. These Indians are certainly no strangers to the idea of a giant beaver. He figures importantly in tales of how they and the world began. He claims a fourth of the Delaware nation under the beaver totem. He is a protector, sustainer, worker of miracles. Zepho, during the full moon, however, is not exactly what they have in mind, failing somehow to be sinister or powerful enough. Nor to be direct do they ever find him quite beaver enough, as the phenomenon lasts but a night and a day, whilst beneath every other phase of the moon he appears to be the Zepho of old. "How can you go on wanting me as your husband?" he cries. "Beaver for a day don't seem like much, Zepho. You've seen everything I can turn into." "Mighty kind of you, Rhodey. In fact, too kind. What is it you're cooking up now?" "Nothing, Zepho. Just how women flit from one daydream to another, and all at once I had this idea for a contest." "Rhodey?" "Make us a fortune. Suppose you and that Swedish axeman Stig were to— Wait, dear, it wouldn't work. A dozen things have to be perfect. The bark has to taste right, the age of the tree, its vital emanations." "Nor's it quite fair," Professor Worm adds, "for Stig's indifferent to what he chops down, knowing he can fell anything with that Swedish bit and custom handle, a hickory or an alder, an oak or a peach. It matters little to Stig. The equations are the same, but for the arboreal coefficients, details of importance to a beaver absorbed in a single brutal downswing, after which all is over. You're saying it's a mismatch? Listen, tree for tree, I can match anything that Swede can do. There's the Zepho I married. And so, at the full moon of August 5th, the two lumbermen meet upon the Visto. Mason and Dixon bring out and carefully adjust the Royal Society clock, winch up the weight and set the pendulum a tick. The contestants are to proceed side by side, each being responsible for half of the Visto's breadth. At the end of 2 perfectly measured hours, the slain trees will be counted. If the numbers happen to be equal, then Zepho and Stig will each fell 1 more tree, and the fastest will be the winner. All set, booms Mr. Barnes. Gentlemen, let's clear us some Visto! A chorus of Mrs. Eggslap's young ladies have turned out to lend support to Stig. Swing that axe, chop that tree, on Stig, on, to victory! Stig strikes for them an athletic pose, then another. He has more than enough time, hasn't he, to get to work, and these girls are so... Stig! What is this? He narrows his gaze, looking about. Zepho is already well out of sight, over the next rise, in fact, having left behind a 5-yard swathe of trees horizontal and neatly separated into trunks, branches, and withes. Stig grips his axe, assaulting his side of the Visto with so much fury that the first tree is coming down before he is really prepared to avoid it. One limb, in consequence, catches him fairly across the arse, sending him asprawl. He takes some time to arise, and when he does, he's limping. It proves but a sprain that he is able in the next 2 hours to work out, yet not enough to come appreciably upon Zepho. I thought I was perfect, as Stig will later recall. What happened? Sometimes, Mrs. Eggslap will begin, 'tis hard to be a woman. By now 'tis well past sunset, and the full August moon has risen. Expecting its rays further to enhance Zepho's performance, Guy Spit, the pass-bank bully, is sending agents round to make side wagers as to the total number of trees felled. Imagine his consternation when Zepho, seeing the risen orb, screams and runs for the nearest shade. Impossible, mutters Professor Vohm, unless... The light! Zepho screams. The moon! Rhodey! It's almost... Ah! Mason looks at Dixon. Dixon looks at Mason. The eclipse! Both cry at the same time. They have only now remembered the eclipse of the moon, due to start later tonight. Zepho is morphosing back to human and not enjoying it much. Stig requests that the contest be declared void, and Guy Spit collapses in tears, his only intelligible word, ruin. "'Tis well," murmurs Rhodey, trying to ignore the vast hands full of fur Zepho is shedding all over her apron. "There is a promising lawsuit in this, if we can prove those astronomers knew about it in advance." "We assumed the one would have no effect upon the other," protests Mason, "and we certainly didn't use the knowledge to win any money, did we?" Dixon raises his eyes piously. "How could they not be connected? Zepho, my own, speak to me." Not even a Philadelphia lawyer could win an argument like that. In ancient days, notes Captain Zhang, thou'd have been beheaded. Indeed, it nearly happened to a pair of astronomers, legendary in China, named Hsi and Ho. The next evening, Zepho, yet in mental distress over his unpremeditated rehumanizing, the topic of Mason and Dixon's lapse having again arisen, the captain tells the story of Hsi and Ho. Next chapter.